We all know that water is one of the most important and fundamental parts of life. And we all know that sex is better when wetter. But today, I want to look at all of the ways that water and sex come together so that we can all, come together. Today, I'm covering water sports, shower sex, underwater sex, and basic hydration. Here's to all of the ways that water impacts sex, and some of which are guaranteed to surprise you, and all of the ways that you can use water to make your bedroom playtime even better. And watch all the way to the end for my personal favorite tips, because I am a water child. I could live in the shower. If I could get all of my camera gear in there, I would only record in the bathtub. Trust me. Have you ever wanted to have bigger loads? Leave more frosting on the cake? What if you just have an occasional relationship with anxiety and you'd like to keep it in check so that you can be present with your lover when it matters most? Well, then I've got an ancient secret that all of the most epic lovers, from Genghis Khan to Matthew McConaughey, have used to dazzle in bed. And that trick is water. I'm just kidding. I have no idea what Genghis Khan's relationship was like with water. I doubt that he was a very good lover, but he did have fertile... Anyways, let's move on. Let's start with the least/most sexy stuff, hydration. Your basic hydration levels have so much to do with your sexual functioning. And this is really good news, guys, because this means that the answer to some of your sexual challenges might just be available out of every freaking faucet and corner store around. For men in particular, this includes the volume, flavor, and smell of your ejaculate. It also has an impact on your ability to get and stay hard. For women, this includes the wetness of our vulvas and vaginas. And hydration also impacts our mental health. If you are feeling down, anxious, any kind of sort of funk, try drinking water. And I'm not saying that water is going to cure your chronic anxiety, but it might make a difference if you can't understand why you're suddenly feeling like a little self-conscious or not yourself. I mean, it's sort of like we get hangry, when we're hungry, and we can be like surprisingly mean. Well, guess what? Water is actually more important than food to our overall well-being. When it comes to having sex, your mental game is just as important as your physical one. And luckily, water supports both. Remember that your body has a lot of different ways of telling you that you need to drink more water. Feeling thirsty or having dry mouth is just one of them. Being hungry, having a headache, feeling tired and sluggish, brain fog. These could be signs that you're edging towards dehydration. And don't think just because you drink water on occasion that you're hydrated. You have to really be able to absorb water too, right? So you can add a little bit of salt to your water bottle, which is essentially what they're selling in electrolyte powders, just like for $5 a little thing instead of just a little twist of salt. Anyways, enough with the health talk. Let's move on to some of the sexier stuff. See, there are plenty of ways to incorporate water in sex. For example, you can have sex in water, although there are definitely some things to keep in mind before you take this particular plunge. First of all, why have sex in water? Well, it's fun. It's unique, it's novel, it's hot. We've seen it in plenty of films and on TV shows. It's sensual, right? More on that part when we jump into the shower in just a minute. But mostly, sex in water can be kinky and fun. It can be very naughty if you're maybe like around other people in a lake or the ocean and doing some fooling around under the water when no one can see you. I mean, water also makes you buoyant, right? So you can pick up yourself or your partner. You can potentially get into some positions that just aren't possible on dry land. What is not to love? Hot, fun, novel, risque, check, 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 check. But there are a few things that you need to know before you dive in. First up, and this is not a joke, water is not a good lubricant. I mean, you might think so because it is water, but anyone who's tried to fool around in a hot tub knows that's just not the case. If you want to have sex underwater, you need to make sure that you're both super turned on, in particular that your partner is wet and aroused before any underwater antics can start. A good silicone or oil-based lubricant is your friend here. Just make sure not to mix oil with latex condoms. Of course, if things aren't smooth, then don't go to pound town, okay? If you force it, you can create micro tears in the vagina, and we're gonna talk about some more risks related to that, because consider the content of the water that you are in before you're fooling around. Lakes and ponds have all kinds of bacteria. Hot tubs and pools are generally filled with chemicals. All of that stuff can have disastrous effects on the vagina's precious ecosystem. And what's in the water can actually lead to an increased risk of getting a urinary tract infection for some stray bacteria, or a yeast infection from chlorine, or something else entirely terrifying. This is true, by the way, for both good old PIV, penetration, and digital, aka finger penetration. If there's any question about what's going on in the water, maybe just stick to external play and don't put anything up into a body unless you are sure that it can, first of all, handle it because it's slick and wet, and that it's not going to be filled with icky surprises. And lastly, I will never ever be able to forget a cautionary video that we watched in my high school sex ed that taught us that having vaginal penetration while submerged can lead to getting air bubbles in the uterus, which can actually lead to death. Now, I did some additional research on this video, and technically this is true, but it is also true, as much true possibly, on dry land as it is in water, because if you think about it, where are the air bubbles coming from? Like, maybe if you're at the surface of the water? I don't know. The details are too much to get into in this video, but yes, it's true, it's dangerous. Do not put air in the vagina. Don't let someone blow in your vagina. It's not meant to have air in it. Don't put air in it. Not a good idea. Don't get me wrong, it's like if you have sex and you queef, you know, have a little vaginal fart, that's okay, it's fine, it happens. But don't like blow air into the vagina, okay? Just don't do it. You heard it here first, Caitlin B. Don't blow air into the vagina. So in my professional opinion, the safest way to make this fantasy come to fruition is actually to hop into a bathtub with your lover and fill it with warm, clean, regular tap water. Not a bunch of soaps, not a bunch of salts, not a bunch of oils. Make sure that you have plenty of lube on hand. Start penetration outside of the water. That way the water doesn't wash away your natural lubrication and it doesn't wash away any of the silicone or oil-based lube that you're adding. And then bring yourself down into the water together after penetration has already been achieved. By the way, as an aside, bubble baths, they look cool in pictures, but I do not recommend them for people with vulvas because you are essentially sitting in soap and the vagina is not meant to be soaped. And if you or your partner is someone who uses Summer's Eve vaginal soap, throw it out. Throw it out right now. Your vagina does not need soap. It is a self-cleaning instrument. That stuff is basically the same ingredients as shampoo. Just go into the bath. Pause right here. Go into the bathroom. Throw it out. I'll wait. I will wait. We can't have a video about water and sex without talking about water sports, which is a polite way of saying urinating for arousal, aka erotic urination. And the numbers here could surprise you. In a study of more than 4,000 Americans, Dr. Justin Lehmiller found that 32% of men and 15% of women said they've had a fantasy situation involving urine before. Golden showers have been around for a while. I'm not going to cover them in depth on this video, but do write in the comments if you want me to do a whole video on the subject. We can absolutely do that. What we can talk about here today is how to do it safely. As with all things sex, if piss play is something that you want to try, it's best to start with communication. Who saw that one coming? Talk to your partner first. Let them know what you're into, why you're into it. Make sure to be a good listener and hear any of their questions and concerns. And both of you try not to be judgmental of anything that your partner brings up, whether it's kinky or novel or idiot. If you're the partner who is introducing this idea or having it introduced to you, just know that there's no one reason that people are turned on by piss. Like, it has a connotation and it's very taboo. Some people are interested in degradation or being humiliated or feeling like they're doing the humiliating or having power, feeling superior or inferior to another person. But there are also folks who are just into the sensual aspects of urine. They like the feel, the smell, or the taste. And again, for some folks, it's just that you're not supposed to do it. Therefore, it's taboo. Therefore, it's hot. If you want to experiment with pee but you're a little squeamish, I highly recommend that you just do so in the shower. It makes for easy cleanup. If you're not really into it, then you're like right there. You can just soap off and then you can go have a beer, a glass of wine, and debrief that whole experience together. Doing it in the shower just lowers the stakes quite a bit. Plenty of us already pee in the shower. It's not that big of a deal. All right, while we're on that subject, let's round out this video on water and sex with a conversation about my favorite intertwining of those two, which is shower sex. I am a little biased because, full transparency, as a youth, I used to masturbate using the various settings of the shower head. You know, the massage setting that's like one time I even fell over having an orgasm this way and knocked myself all of the way out. That is true. I fell on my tailbone and I knocked myself unconscious once in high school while masturbating. You know, horny teenagers are gonna do whatever it takes until they are allowed to just go to the store and buy a vibrator for themselves. Shower sex can be a fun way to spice things up. It can be a great way to share intimacy. It's usually an activity for one. It's a small enclosed space. It's very, very sensual. It can also be really hot to feel clean while getting it on, especially for those folks out there that have the sensual blueprint. I recommend, professional opinion, that if you're going to experiment with shower sex, you start by taking your time and scrubbing each other head to toe, slowly, erotically, with eye contact. Worship their entire body. Then take turns doing some manual or oral stimulation in order to get them hot and ready. Penetration in the shower is not as easy as being on a horizontal surface, so foreplay is going to be your friend here. Then go ahead and grab the lube, because again, water, and go to town. But be cautious. Showers are slippery. Take it from one girl who knows falling in the shower is no joke. Take that into consideration. Maybe we're not gonna like lift anybody up in the shower, as hot as that might sound. Really good way to hurt two people. Don't make the mistake also of thinking that like the towel bar or the glass sliding door is gonna be strong enough to hold you. Use common sense, err on the side of safety, and if you just love getting freaky in the shower, consider adding a couple of properly installed grips or handles. They typically sell these for disabled folks or elderly folks, and there you can have a custom experience with things that are actually built to be grabbed onto. And I promise you will not have to explain it to anyone who comes to visit. They can just wonder why you needed a grip right there. I'm curious, what did I miss? Where else do sex and water come together? What would you add to this list? What other advice do you have for freaky folks out there who want to have sex in water in all the various ways that I described here? I'm Caitlin V. Thank you for subscribing. I will see you here next week. Bye.